Call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Reading Municipal Light Department Board of Commissioners. Is being videotaped at the RMLD offices at 230 Main Street, 230 Ash Street, Reading. This meeting is being videotaped for distribution to the community television stations in North Reading, Wilmington, and Linfield. Our code of conduct: the RMLD Board of Commissioners recognizes the importance of hearing public comment and at the discretion of the chair on items on the official agenda, as well as on items not on the official agenda. We ask that all questions and comments from the public be directed to the chair, and that all parties, including members of the RMLD board, act in a professional and courteous manner when addressing the board or responding to comments. Once recognized by the chair, all persons addressing the board shall state their name and address prior to speaking. It is the role of the chair to maintain order in all public comment or ensuing discussion. So tonight we just got one item on the agenda. Now, I will explain why we're having this meeting, because it has been questioned. First off, we need something more, a public statement. We've talked among ourselves, but I need actually a public statement to go forward to what we're going to say to the subcommittee next week. Maybe let me back up here. I should acknowledge our two commissioners-elect who are in the audience tonight. They've been re-elected, but the final vote has not been certified yet, so they are not able to be sworn in. But they are here as commissioners-elect, and I will allow them to participate as citizens of the town. So anyway, so basically, you know, we need some sort of public statement. Now, since the white paper has come out, and Colleen, can you tell where everybody can get the white paper? It's still on the website?
Yes.
You tell them where they can go to get the white paper. Anybody who the public knows.
On the RMLD.com website, under meetings on the left-hand column, and then you select Board of Commissioners, it's up left-hand side under quick links.
Okay. So basically, you know, and I recommend anybody who, you know, follows the debate that they do read the white paper in detail, because it's a very informative document in terms of that. So basically, with that, you know, it's really going to be what the commission wants to do here, because we have sole control over the bottom line is what we want to do. And so I'm looking for, let me finish, and I will recognize you. So what I'm looking for tonight is just some sort of public statement as to what we think we want to be going forward at this point. So, Rocky, you wanted to speak?
Yes, I just thought for the viewing audience, it might be helpful just for them to understand the background in terms of how this issue got raised and what we mean by payment to the town. So
Okay, all right, so
the
the issue was originally drawn up back in April of 2017 at town meeting as an instructional motion. At that point, the motion was to instruct the selectmen to look into it. You know, I raised at that particular meeting the idea of the subcommittee, which has existed since the 80s and never met until the fall. And basically, the selectmen went along with that, and the subcommittee was formed. And it consists of 2 members of the CAB, 2 members of the commission, which is myself and Commissioner-elect Stempeck is the 2. And then we also have a member of the Board of Selectmen, which is Dan Edzinger, the selectman. And so really what it is we're allowed to earn 8% as the bottom line. That's the maximum we're allowed to, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I say something wrong, please. That's why the department is here. We're allowed to earn 8%. From that 8% is really the bottom line. That number goes to 2 different places. One can go for capital, which is the capital funds, which are very important to maintain the system. The other part is the return on investment to the town. And that number is around 2.7. Got the right number on that? 2.7 is the right number? Go ahead.
Can I correct you?
Go ahead. That's why you're here.
So I just want to clarify, it's 8% of net plant, first of all.
Wendy, why don't you come up, would you?
Come up.
Sorry.
Come up and speak. Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, the RMLD is
allowed to earn 8% of net plant, and their bottom line, the rate of return. And it is the RMLD's discretion to use that 8% on whatever the business sees fit. Now, we've always used it as adding to our capital infrastructure. So that's where, that's where everybody gets this idea that that's where we need to spend the money. That's not accurate. We don't have to spend the money on that. But there is nothing that says that we also have to spend it on this pilot payment to the town of Reading.
Return on investment, return on
Oh,
investment.
return on investment.
Is great. But if we don't spend the money on the capital, we cannot maintain the system properly.
That's correct. I just was letting you know that we don't have to spend it only on that.
And I think that is the critical point where we are now at. I know the department has been looking at the issue for a couple of years now, a few years. And basically, one of the things that's happened by forcing the commission now to look at this, it's kind of come to the conclusion that the present formula is not sustainable in the future, because we'll be giving too much to the town, and just not enough will be going back into the capital, is where we are now at this point. So, we need to, one of the things that, we can do is just, one of the options we have is to do nothing. Always option to do nothing, just leave the present formula in place. But, again, that doesn't solve the problem of the fact that we could be running out of capital, not maintaining the system. At some point, we'd have to look at and study what we're going to do and how we're going to resolve that. And if that means, I'm going to say it, if that means we've got to freeze the payment to the town, we're going to have to freeze the payment to the town. I can't afford to jeopardize the department and the
Mr.
maintenance
Chair.
of the department.
Could I add one more thing to that?
Sure.
So, to clarify, we have been consistently in the past 5 years spent more than the rate of return on our capital infrastructure. Just want to clarify that. Okay.
So, anywho, so one of the things I'm looking for is something, a short term. I think we should be focused on only the next 2 years on the rate of return, with the idea that in year 3, there is some sort of study and we make some sort of adjustment to the formula at this point. So that's where I'm at. I still continue to think that what I presented from before, with the 2.5 as the floor, I mean, the CPI is 2.51, I understand. So I'm not, and with the idea that the ceiling be the 5%, only for the next 2 years, after that, there'd be a study with an adjustment as to how this is going to go. So I'll open it up for everybody. I'll open up for comments from everybody now at this point. So.
Yeah, so,
Yep.
this isn't the language, but so I think that there's 2 things, Phil, I would see.
Mhm.
One is, I think for presentation to the town meeting, however this gets, communicated, we need to sort of summarize, because I think we started with the process with trying to find ways to increase the payment to the town. And in that process, we discovered that there were a lot of other issues that we were
That's right.
dealing with respect
exactly
to
it.
disruptive technologies, with respect to the growth in the payment, which is now counting both payments above the line and below the line, 2.7 million, which I think if people have been listening into some of the meetings, you realize that's the largest payment that is being made to any towns in the Northeast, I guess. Is that the served area that we looked at? So all of that and the need to continue to invest in the capital infrastructure, I think giving a very short summation like that, those aren't the words, to the town, because it's the foundation, I think, really is we have a lot of commitments that we have to honor to make this run as efficiently as it has. And also the idea, I think this has been a bad winter, but a good one in terms of people understanding the importance of reliability of the utility and the restoration of power. You can't prevent power from going out, but the way the RMLD has reacted. So we don't want to jeopardize that. And I think people that I've talked to in the community know the rates are very favorable. So I would say combining both things. One is a very short statement of, you know, why we aren't in a position to make an increased payment, followed by some recommendation that, and we can talk about that. I think that's kind of the framework, something for 2 years that's fixed, and then when it has boundaries, and then a study to occur during that time.
Right, absolutely. Other comments? Go ahead.
We have a couple members of the public here, don't we? Do you want to, despite their sort of nebulous status, do you want to allow them to sit in the public chairs over there anyway? Or?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to
Why
hear.
don't you go to the microphone? You can come to the microphone.
And while they're getting situated,
You could both come.
so a
We
couple.
just share this
If I
microphone.
may, Mr. Chair. So
Yes.
I guess a couple thoughts on this, where this is. First of all, I guess we came here to discuss, you convened the meeting to discuss the payment to the town, but the agenda item says something that's hard to understand, even to me. Discussion on ROI, disposition thereof, and effect on funding of the RMLD capital needs. It never says that we're convened to talk about the town payment. So I think if that was the real agenda, then we should have listed it that way so the public could have seen what the purpose of this meeting was and interested parties could have come. You know, and I thought that the reason we had a subcommittee was that it convened and it would recommend forward to the full board, not the full board telling, you know, then recommending what the subcommittee should recommend back to the full board. So those are just some procedural, I feel like it's confusing to the public and even to me as somebody who's supposed to know what we're doing here. But to get back to the core issue of what should we do, if I understood the two of you correctly, that you feel like we don't make any change for 2 years, and then during which we study what to do after that, is that your bottom line? Is that what you're saying? So there's not an increase in the next 2 years beyond what would have already happened?
Right. The only thing I'm proposing is, right now, CPI is 2.5.
Yep.
2.51%, as I understand it. So I would say we keep the floor, we have a floor of 2.5%. But we have a ceiling of 5%.
But I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know what that means in terms of, are we giving the town more money than we otherwise would have had there been no process, yes or no?
No, we would not be giving the town
If
any
it's
more money.
the same as if we had never convened any of these.
Right, the only thing I'm saying is we have a cap. If the CPI goes to 6%,
Okay, so if anything, if anything, it limits what the increase will be over the next 2 years.
potentially.
Yeah,
But it certainly doesn't, let me see if I can boil it down in my own
Go
mind.
ahead.
The net result is there is no increase beyond what we would have already been doing. The only thing we've done is put a ceiling on it.
That's what I'm
May I,
saying.
that's a-
Yeah, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
think the other difference historically, say the last 3, 4, 5 years, as everyone knows, the CPI has been 1% or 1.5% or something. So it's been increasing gradually. The expectation is, as Phil said, it's going to go up maybe to 2.5%. And with that climbing, so we'll be paying more than
Right.
historically over this last few years. However,
It's the same formula that was already in place.
yes, and it's
Okay.
just putting a fence around in case the
How high it could go.
CPI, yeah, in case
Blows
of-
through the roof
right.
in a 9%
Right.
inflationary craze.
Yes,
Right.
Okay. I mean, it certainly sounds, stepping back, it feels to me like having done, thank you, Colleen, for and I guess it was John that asked for the white paper. Am I getting this wrong? And Colleen, you got it done. And I think we all learned a lot from that. And, you know, one thing that stood out to me was that RMLD is making the largest payment in the state of Massachusetts to its municipality, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is a salient fact that would have been great to have known that a year ago at the floor town meeting when people were talking about this. You know, now it's, a lot of these things are clear. It's the highest in the state. It goes up automatically, even though some of the others are fixed. If I understand, Taunton is fixed. Is that right? I don't mean to put you on the spot. You know, but some of them are, it's just X every year. It doesn't go up. Ours does go up. So I feel like,
Some goes down.
and some goes down, you know, and that RMLD is a really important force for economic development in the region, and that the capital needs are very great, and the job that's being done here is really great, and these are important things. So it's hard for me to see that there's a problem that we have in terms of not giving the town enough, and that indeed it's hard to see why we would go up. So I guess all of that is to circle around and say that what the two of you are saying makes sense to me.
If I could make a comment as well, this is John Stempak, 65 Avalon Road. You know,
Good, you
we-
identified yourself.
Yes, well, the first time, it's great. And thank you, Reading, for voting for me. I really do appreciate it, and for Dave Hennessy is here as well.
Thank you as well. 7 Pine Ridge Road, Dave Hennessy.
You know, we've been told that the RMLD has not been keeping up with the increase in rates that have occurred over the last couple of years. But by the same token, you know, the CPI index has affected everybody, not just the RMLD. So if the cost of living isn't increasing by over 1% per year, then that becomes a strange argument to use. Over the history of the last 25 years, we've been at a 2.31% rate of increase. So on the average, we have been keeping up and maintaining basically that 2.3%, which, as the commission members have already mentioned, is the largest payment in Massachusetts to any municipality. So I think we've tried to do our job as well as we possibly can in contributing to the town. And I would also say that up until before our general manager, Colleen O'Brien, was here, the town, or RMLD, had not reinvested in a lot of capital into the plant, which was sorely needed. And we were beginning to feel the effects of that, both in terms of transformers blowing up, in terms of poles falling down or going rotten. There were many, many different things that were not being taken care of. And they really, so now we're basically playing catch up, and we have a very sophisticated mechanism for bringing in consultants from the industry who laid out a 6-year plan for how we should approach this in a stepwise fashion. And we're implementing it in a very professional manner. It's all very factual. Everything is laid out. Anyone who'd like to see it, we'd be happy to go over with you anytime. And you can see that this is not conjecture, it's not innuendo. These are things that are needed to maintain the safety and the reliability of the RMLD for all of our end-use customers in all of our communities that we serve. So we're really trying to do the right thing here, and irrespective of trying to find more cash. And by the way, I might just mention, we have to be very careful we don't go negative on the cash flow. We have a certain amount of money that we can make mandated by the state, and the last thing we want to do, just like you and your business, you don't want to go negative on the bottom line, and asking for more and more money from the RMLD, taking away from our capital in reinvestment is going to do exactly that. We don't want that to happen, and I don't think any of you want it to happen either.
Thanks, John. I agree with everything that was said so far. Just a point of clarity, Chair. Phil, or Chair.
That's fine.
How's the timing work? Is it it's 2 years?
Right, so this.
But when would the study start and when would it end? And were you saying that?
So basically, this would start, so I visualize it. And, you know, one of the things that we ought to talk about again at a future meeting is going to a calendar year end. That is an issue I think we should bring back to the commission again. I visualize that this would start as of July the 1st of this year. And then, because that would be consecutive over the town's fiscal year. So it would be 2 years, starting from July 1st of 2018.
It would
So
take-
July,
It would take that long to do it?
well, I don't know. I mean, I'm getting 2 years.
Yeah.
2
To
years.
do this, I'm sorry, to do the study?
That's reasonable, 2 years? It would take 2 years to do
Oh,
it?
not to do the study, I don't think.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's a reasonable time to let the towns also digest what's going on here too. I don't want to, July 1st say, hey, I don't think that's fair to the town. I think, over the 2-year period, so that they understand.
If I may, even with a 2-year period, if we find that it's impacting our need for additional capital investment, I think we need to be ready to
Yes, I agree with
change
that.
it. We need to be flexible and, again, preserve the reliability and safety of our system.
I mean, if we get a major storm, I mean, all you gotta do is look at, Puerto
Or
Rico.
if a substation
Puerto
goes
Rico,
out.
a
right.
substation goes down, or even the ice storm that took place out in the Worcester area a few years ago.
Yes.
I mean, if that happens, that money's gonna be needed for capital. Right, all the way around.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask the question about, I think you said you put a floor in of 2.5%?
Yeah.
Should we do that? Because if we find something that, like what you just talked about, happens, we might not be able to do it, right?
Well, my anticipation is CPI right now is 2.51%. I don't visualize CPI going down in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I don't either, yeah.
Because, I've heard the Fed is talking about raising interest rates 4 times. We've got potentially trade wars now going on too at this point. So the cost of things could be going up potentially. So I don't visualize the CPI getting lower, going below the 2.5%.
No.
Well, I think that as long as there's language within our defined statement
Right,
that says
absolutely.
that if there's unanticipated catastrophes or other things that,
exactly.
acts of nature that occur, that all these bets are off. I mean, we are not going to be supplying on a guaranteed basis additional money to the town if we have a catastrophe that has occurred. And I think that's just a reasonable man argument, it's just common sense.
Phil, can I make a couple?
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. I just want to make a couple of clarifications so that we're all on the same page. We are allowed to make up to 8% of net plant, okay? But I just want to remind everybody, you don't always want to do that, because when you're raising it to 8, you are increasing the rate. So a lot of these utilities, as Dave is talking about, have fixed volunteer pilot payments. Some of them are decreasing, because one of the largest methodologies for calculation would be a % of kilowatt-hour sales. So similar to Reading Light, kilowatt-hour sales are flat and now declining. And so there are other utilities that may have gotten more money in the previous years than they're getting now. Some plants do a percentage of net plant. Right now, our net plant is going to be climbing for a while because of the infrastructure in the capital outlay. And that would mean that the 8% of net plant would go up. That means you can make a little bit more money. But because sales are going down, the only way to make the 8% is to raise the rate. Okay? So I just want to make sure that everybody understands the balance of that. So if we are being guided as the standard for this size system to be investing approximately $8 million a year, and you're trying to keep your rate of return 8 or less to be fair to the public, but to also make your commitments, and you're paying the town on an exponential rate, that convergence is coming very quickly. And that's the concern, and I think that's what I showed in that PowerPoint presentation. But I just want to just make sure we're all on the same page with that, because it will appear that we can make a little bit more money with the net plant going up. But you got to raise the rate to get it. So we want to stay in the middle of the pack. I would think a competitively low rate for all the municipals in the state. We're comfortable in the middle of the pack, and I think that's where we need to stay there.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things too is that, and even the selectmen, in talking about the override, talked about economic development.
Yep.
And that's a big issue, and I think it's, staying in the middle of the pack plays into that too, to the economic development, so.
I think that's right. As I was listening to Colleen and you, Phil, on that point, I mean, I think when the utility gives more to the town, it comes out of rates. It's a zero-sum game. I wish, I hope we can have the same conversation, by the way, when people are here who have been following and then working on this issue all year. There's been a bunch of people who have, and I think they should be here and able to come up. And so I hope we have the same conversation during the subcommittee and then during the meeting, and not just decide. We're not deciding anything tonight, but still. Because I'd like everybody to be able to have this conversation as in a public forum where everybody's here. But that we don't want to raise rates. We don't want to hurt economic development. We don't want to take money out of people's pockets from rates just to add another $100,000 to a town budget. And I think also it was great news that we passed the override in this town, which means that a lot of pressure is off that wasn't in place a year ago when this came before town meeting. It was not at all clear that that would happen. And I know that the citizen who brought it forward, had real concerns, as a lot of us did. How are we going to plug holes in the town's budget? And well, now we have the answer. That it passed, and the situation is different now. So maybe we don't even need to. So that's all.
Okay, Mr. Orr.
Yeah, I just want to go back to a point that Dave made. So I think he's right in the respect that even though I think it's out of the interest of expediting the process, we did appoint a subcommittee. We have new leadership at the selectman level, and we have a cab that, you know, should vote their conscience and vote based on their town needs. So I guess what I'm thinking is that maybe we provide some guidance, because one of the problems that I see is we've been sort of stuck in, you know, expectations on the side of the town as to what we might be able to do, and the realities that have been revealed as we've looked at this closer between the white paper in terms of what we are obligated to do, and then the realities of what Colleen has just articulated. So what I'm sort of envisioning is maybe a process where when the subcommittee meets, you and John, as the representatives, would be able to serve up whatever we land on as ideas to move it forward. And then secondly, perhaps we can also, which I think it's an open meeting, but maybe allow more participation from the participants in terms of answering questions and so forth, all with the idea that, you know, we would then expedite the process, but not, you know, somehow minimize the value of the subcommittee. Because I think the subcommittee still has an obligation to make a decision as a group, because they represent not just the board. And then out of that, the earlier comment I made, I think whatever that decision is, and then the board's vote, I do think we need a communications piece for the town of Reading and other places that, you know, I think there's three pieces. One is, I don't know how clear we've been to everybody in Reading and other towns around what our historical contributions have been. You know, I didn't add it up, but it's obviously millions of dollars, which I just think, we're not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but letting people know the value of RMLD's contribution. Secondly, that 2-year recommendation, if that's what the subcommittee approves. And then thirdly, you know, kind of the path forward with the study and everything, and, you know, hopefully a one-page document that people could have, because the white paper is extremely interesting, but it doesn't deal with, you know, everything on one page, and I think that would be helpful.
Yep. Okay. Further discussion?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? So, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I think I got the sense of where the commission wants to go.
Yeah, could I just,
Yeah.
in the interest of clarity, maybe if one of us could, so I guess, is that, are we looking to do that, Mr. Chair, as far as bringing back that kind of a recommendation?
Yeah, that'd be, and I visualize this as a starting point.
Yep.
This is the starting point. What I'm visualizing, to bring this back and say, this is what we think we can do.
Okay.
And then we go from there.
Okay. Would you
You know?
mind just repeating that, because I want to make sure we've all heard it the same way, in terms of just the main pieces, so we have the...
So the main piece would be that the floor for the increase, and this is going to be for the next 2 years, only for the next 2 years. The floor would be the 2.5%. The ceiling would be the 5%. Should we have a major catastrophe or a major event, let's use the word major event, then we would have to look at, you know, adjustments to those numbers in terms of that. And you know, and then after 2 years, we would have the study done, and we would need to relook at the formula, because the present formula, even in its present form, is not sustainable long-term.
Can I ask a question? So we're talking about just payments that we've already made, but payments in FY19,
Yes.
then payments in FY20, and then there'll be,
Right, I'm visualizing the payments would start with as of July 1st of 2018. Those payments that go forward from that point on,
yeah,
that point
so
forward.
that's FY20, and FY19, then FY20.
Right.
Now,
Colin, just,
yep,
so FY18 is going to be based on the current,
It's based upon the current formula.
right,
which is cost of living.
Right.
CPI plus.
And then this would potentially be effective as of July 1st of 2018.
And then we'd adjust, if we go to a calendar year, we just adjust it.
Right, yeah, there'd be some sort of adjustment.
I just, regardless of the town payment, we still have this convergence issue, so I should probably get on the study.
Yes, yes. Yes.
So, we can talk a little bit more about RFP or how we want
Right.
to carve out the scope of the study, but essentially, that's just one piece of it. We have an overall questions that we need to look at
Right.
as part of the strategic plan.
Yeah, and I think you hit on the point, Phil. I think the language needs to be clear around that the intent is to follow through with those payments, but whether it's a catastrophe or just a fiscal need within the RMLD in order for us to run the railroad correctly,
Right.
that payment could be reduced or eliminated. Hopefully that won't be necessary.
I just have one question, if I may.
Sure.
Do we have a sense of how many, so this is guaranteeing at least a 2.5% increase in FY '19 and FY '20, right?
Correct.
How many municipal utilities in the state are doing similar things where they're guaranteeing 2.5% or more a year? At this point, do we know? Versus it's flat or declining? Or pegged to rates which are, pegged to.
Like I said, everybody's methodology is different. It could be that the plant value's going up. It could be the kilowatt hour sales are going up or down. Some of them have a flat rate, locked in for 10 years. There's a whole bunch of different methodologies. I think I sent you the APPA. It doesn't list what everyone does. It just lists
The types of things.
the types of calculations that are used.
Because, arguably, it's very generous. Even continuing the status quo is relatively generous. Just
Yes.
Wendy's nodding back there, so I take your word for it.
There really
You know what I
isn't
mean?
any for anyone
You know.
for us to compare to.
Right.
It's an outlier.
We're the highest and also have the highest set increase that we're proposing for the next 2 years.
And in all truthfulness, this is something maybe should have been dealt with several years ago
Right.
by this commission. I didn't realize that, we'd even hit a point, it never even occurred to me
Right.
that we'd hit a point where this is unsustainable,
So,
in all the years I've been here.
okay, well,
But it's forced us to look at the issue.
Don't wanna-
Yeah. You want to keep going, Dave? You
I'm
understand?
good. I think, we'll have the same conversation at the subcommittee and then at our full board meeting whenever we do whatever we're gonna do. So
Right.
we may not need to continue, but no, I think we all understand what the issues are.
Yeah, the only thing, listening to all the inputs, I guess, and again, since we're not making a decision tonight, maybe in the subcommittee, we can be clear that we're still wrestling with, I can understand the benefit of doing 2 years, FY '19 and '20, but if you think about it, we want to add a sense of urgency to this topic, both from purpose of getting the study done, and also 2 years out is a long time. We don't have an idea what the revenue line, we know we have kind of a sloping line, so maybe we make it FY '18, as usual, FY '19, we guarantee 2.5 to 5, and then we look at it at that point.
Yeah, maybe that's,
And maybe we can renew it a year.
I think you've got to give the town 2 years. Give them enough, you've got to give them 2 years.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
I thought this gentleman already had a chance to speak.
Just can't stop.
Isn't there any other member of the public
John
who?
Stempeck, 65 Avalon Road. I think that the study, my sense is that the study could be conducted much faster than a year. And I think there is a sense of urgency to do it, and I think the commissions should get on with it as quickly as possible. This is something, by the way, that's not just happening to Reading. It's happening to all utilities across the United States. There's been a decrease in terms of kilowatt hour usage because of technology and enhancement and lower electricity use from LED bulbs and AC and industrial drives, and everyone's trying to cut down the amount of electricity they use and becoming much more efficient. And it's a wonderful thing. We're becoming much more efficient. But what that impacts are organizations that are fixed cost, pretty much like the RMLD. Many utilities have a significant amount of fixed cost. And so these payments that continually go up, and that's what we're talking about in the convergence, is if your revenue is going like this and your costs are going up in terms of contributions, at some point you can't sustain your fixed costs in terms of labor and reinvestment and capital, et cetera. So I would suggest that we don't guarantee 2 years, that we do the study, and if we find that it's happening faster than we think, then we modify it. We be flexible to modify it. I don't believe that we should write anything, or that the commission, excuse me, should write anything in concrete, that we'll do the right thing for both organizations as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll see what the subcommittee says. I'll bring it up. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Any other comments from the audience?
Is there a date, Mr. Chair, for this subcommittee?
Yes, it's next Wednesday on the 11th at 5:30. So
And then the
it's
full
open.
board meeting is the following Thursday, so the 19th, the Tuesday.
What's the date? Oh, can I ask that?
It's the 11th. It's the 11th, is the subcommittee meeting. And
The
then-
board is the 17th.
The 17th, yeah.
And
Is that
there-
the 17th or the 19th?
It's the 17th.
The 17th?
Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday, okay. Okay.
And are we efforting to have something for town meeting, or just a report?
I think that's something that'll be discussed at the subcommittee.
Yeah.
Depends upon where everybody is at that point. Certainly, the Board of Selectmen, I understand, are supposed to discuss this at their next meeting, which is the 10th, from what I understand. The CAB is kind of waiting until after the subcommittee at that point for their discussion. And we'll see where it is.
I just want to take one last shot, because I'm not sure I have a good sense of what we really want to serve up to the subcommittee. It sounds like we have, well, I'm not sure if we have the exact idea, but we've talked about what we would do over a 2-year period. Now, is everybody in favor of that as kind of the framework? And the only thing we're talking about is whether, we'll guarantee it lest there be a severe issue, or are we saying something less than that, like this is the formula, but, we reserve the right to do it at any time or day, which is a different kind of, maybe that gets hammered out with the
I think that
subcommittee.
gets.
Maybe that's better
I think
than
that's
trying
better
to
for the
say what
subcommittee.
we've come to a consensus, which
Yeah, well, I just
we're
don't
kind
want
of
to-
circling around it,
I
but
just didn't want it to be served
yeah.
up as guaranteed. Okay, so I think,
This is the starting point.
Yep.
This is the starting point.
maybe somebody should go to the Tuesday selectmen meeting. I don't know.
Are you volunteering?
No, I mean, I could, or I think Tom, any of you are probably better at this than I am, but, I don't know, Tom, or somebody, I don't want to put you on the spot.
yeah,
Should be an elected person.
why don't one,
I mean, I could go, but, maybe I'll go and sit in the audience, but I just think somebody should be there. It's like,
I'm happy to go, I may have a commitment then, in which case.
Okay.
The only thing I warn you is they may try to pull you into the discussion, so just be careful.
but that's fine. I mean, I
Whoever
think it's,
goes,
we're
whoever
public
goes.
bodies, and it's okay to
Whoever
discuss
goes.
things, I mean, I think things got off the rails last year, and it didn't have to happen, and, I think just going to their meetings, and likewise, it just understand the
It's off
issues.
rails because there was some other,
Well, I know.
different people interpreted things different ways.
Yes, I know, but
So
still,
let's leave
I
it at
think,
that.
All right, so Dave, we can connect and see which
Okay.
one of us has the opportunity to go.
Okay.
But I do think it's a good idea, because,
I mean, they're gonna wanna know, it's confusing, I've found some of this confusing, so, I mean, it's complicated, and
Okay.
understanding what our mission is and what our issues are is important.
I'm definitely not available, I can tell you that. Text. I still got 45 left to go between now and the 15th. Okay. All right, very good. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
motion adjourned?
Seconded?
Second?
All those in favor, raise your right hand. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.